The Family Feud stage was live, and the cameras were rolling, when 44-year-old Brad Coleman turned to the Patel family on the other side of the stage during a tiebreaker pause and said something so ugly, so deliberately and precisely designed to wound, that 3 production staff members later said they weren't sure, in the moment, whether what they had just heard was real. He used 2 slurs, one targeting the family's South Asian heritage, one that questioned whether they belonged in the country at all, and he said them with the particular confidence of someone who has said such things before, in smaller rooms, and faced no consequence. The Patel family went very still. Priya Patel, 28, who had been standing at the front of the family podium and had the fastest buzzer hand of anyone in the room, put both hands flat on the podium and looked at the floor. Her father Vikram, 58, put his hand on her shoulder. Her mother Sunita, 55, closed her eyes. And Steve Harvey, standing between the 2 podiums, host cards in hand, mid-sentence on the tiebreaker setup, stopped speaking. He looked at Brad Coleman. Then he said 5 words that every television lawyer in the country would spend the next week debating. "You're done. Get off my stage." He did not wait for the security team. He pointed at the exit. And what he did after Brad Coleman was escorted out, what he said to the Patel family, what he built from the rubble of that moment, would be seen by 340 million people and would change the conversation about what a game show host is allowed to do and required to do when hatred walks onto his stage. It was Thursday, April 4th, 2019, at the Trilith Studios complex in Atlanta, Georgia. The Patel family from Edison, New Jersey, had flown down the day before and were staying at a hotel 15 minutes from the studio. There were 5 of them. Priya, 28, a software engineer who had applied to Family Feud 6 months earlier as a birthday gift to her parents. Vikram, 58, a pharmacist who had immigrated from Gujarat, India in 1989. Sunita, 55, who ran a catering business from their home kitchen. Priya's younger brother Rohan, 24, a pre-med student, and their aunt Meena, 51, who had driven down from New York because she refused to miss anything involving Priya. They were a fast, educated family, quick on the buzzer, encyclopedic in their general knowledge, warm with each other in the way families are warm when they have built something together across a long immigration and know exactly how much it cost. The Colemans from Nashville, Tennessee. Brad, 44, his wife Wendy, 42, and 3 of their adult children had been competitive since the opening round. Brad was the loudest person in the room, quick with commentary on every question, the kind of contestant who narrated his own gameplay as he went and expected the room to appreciate this. The first 2 rounds had been close. The Patels were leading by 22 points going into the tiebreaker. That was when Brad Coleman said what he said. But nobody in that studio had anticipated what was about to happen next. Brad Coleman had grown up in Nashville in a household where the vocabulary of difference, the specific, hateful vocabulary, had been present and unchallenged. He was not a stupid man. He was a man who had never been required to grow. He ran a small construction business, coached his son's youth soccer team, grilled at neighborhood cookouts, and maintained in every circle he moved through a version of himself that was acceptable. He did not use the vocabulary in those circles. He saved it for moments like this one. Moments of stress, moments of competition, moments when the person in front of him was winning and happened to be from somewhere that his upbringing had given him a word for. He used the words the way some people reach for a tool they know is wrong, but that is the first thing their hand finds. The Patel family was leading his family on a game show. He reached for the tool. What Brad Coleman did not know, what he could not have calculated, because he had never in 44 years faced a meaningful consequence for this particular tool was that the microphone above his head was live. Was that 300 people were close enough to hear. Was that Steve Harvey was 6 feet away and had grown up being assigned the other category of slur, and that the architecture of his body and his history meant that what he heard was not just an insult directed at the Patels. It was a sound he had heard his entire life and had built an entire career on refusing to absorb, and he was not going to watch it land on a family who had done nothing wrong on his stage without doing something about it. Priya Patel had heard the words before. Not those specific words, always, but their relatives, the cousins and neighbors of those words, delivered in parking lots and classrooms and comment sections, and once, memorably, by a colleague at her first job who had said them quietly and then smiled. She had learned, in 28 years of being the daughter of Vikram and Sunita Patel, to absorb them with the particular stoicism her parents had modeled. Not because the words were acceptable, but because her parents had taught her that your response to an ugly moment defines you more than the moment itself. So she had put her hands on the podium and looked at the floor, which was not weakness. It was the discipline of a woman who had decided, long before this afternoon, that she would not let anyone see her break. Her father Vikram's hand on her shoulder. That was the thing, that single gesture. Vikram Patel, 58 years old, who had left everything he knew in 1989 and built a life in a country that had not always been glad to have him. Who had worked 6-day weeks for 11 years to put Priya and Rohan through school. Who had absorbed more of these words than his daughter had, and smiled through most of them, because smiling was the math that worked. That man's hand, placed quietly on his daughter's shoulder, because he knew she needed steadying, and because steadying his children was something he had been doing since before she could remember. Steve Harvey saw the hand. "You're done," he said. "Get off my stage." 5 words, not loud. Not loud at all. But in a room that had gone suddenly and completely silent, 5 quiet words carry the distance of a shout. Brad Coleman looked at Steve Harvey. His wife Wendy had gone pale beside him. His adult children stood still. A security guard was already moving from the stage entrance. Brad Coleman looked at the security guard. He looked back at Steve. And he left. He walked off the stage. No resistance. No argument. Perhaps because he had, in the moment of seeing Steve Harvey's face, understood for the first time in 44 years that the tool had a consequence. Steve Harvey stood in the center of the stage for a moment after the curtain closed. He was still. His jaw was set. Then he looked at the Patel family. He looked at Priya's hands, still flat on the podium. He looked at Vikram's hand, still on her shoulder. He looked at Sunita, who had opened her eyes and was watching him with an expression of deep, exhausted patience. The expression of a woman who has been waiting, for many years, for something like this to happen in a room where someone had the power to respond to it. He walked to the Patel family podium. "Vikram," he said. He addressed the father directly, by name, looking at him level and steady. "I want to say something to you that I should be allowed to say in English and in Gujarati and in every language that matters, and I am going to say it as clearly as I know how." He paused. He looked at Priya, at Rohan, at Sunita and Meena and Vikram, all 5 of them. "This is your country. You built something here. You flew here, and you showed up. And you stood at that podium and you played a beautiful game, and there is no word, in any language, from any direction, that changes any of that." He stopped. "I need you to hear that, not from a television host, from a man who has had words put on him his whole life, and who knows what it takes to stand there and keep your hands on the podium. Priya Patel looked at Steve Harvey, and her face, which had been composed since the words were said, changed, not into tears, into something more honest than tears. Relief. The particular relief of being seen correctly in the moment when you most needed it. "Stop the game," Steve said, turning to the production desk. "We are not done here." He walked to the center of the stage and turned to the cameras. He broke the fourth wall completely. "I want to talk to everyone watching at home," he said. "There are families in this country, millions of them, who came here from somewhere else, who built something here, who are raising children here, who go to work every day here, who pay taxes and coach soccer teams and run catering businesses out of their kitchens and go to PTAs and contribute to this country in ways that get no headline, and they absorb words like the ones said on this stage today. Every day. In rooms where nobody says you're done. Today, on this stage, someone said it. I want every one of those families to know, on this stage, they were done." The studio fell completely silent. The crew behind the curtain had stopped. The Washington family from the competing team, who had been scheduled to be the Coleman's opponents, then rescheduled when the Patels' application came in, were not in the room. It was just the Patels, and Steve, and 300 people who had stopped breathing. But Steve wasn't done. He pulled out his phone. He called the director of an immigrant family legal services organization in New Jersey. On speaker, he arranged a multi-year partnership grant between the Harvey Foundation and the organization. Funding for family immigration legal support, documentation assistance, and workplace discrimination legal aid, specifically for South Asian families in the tri-state area. Because the Patel family should never have to wonder if they have someone in their corner, Steve said. Now they do. He called a second number. A scholarship fund at a New Jersey university. He endowed, on the spot, on speaker, the Vikram and Sunita Patel Scholarship for first-generation immigrant college students in New Jersey, renewable for 4 years, 3 awards annually. He gave Vikram the scholarship coordinator's direct phone number and asked him to call the next morning. Vikram Patel did not speak for a moment. Then he said, in the voice of a man who has spent 30 years in a country that has not always welcomed him, but has stayed anyway because it was his children's country, "Thank you." He said it in English. Then, quietly, he said something in Gujarati. Steve Harvey looked at Rohan. Rohan said, softly, he said, "Thank God there is still this." The episode aired July 2nd, 2019. Within 24 hours, 105 million views. Within 2 months, 340 million. The hashtag #YourOnMyStage trended in 41 countries for 12 days. The clip was played in diversity and inclusion training programs in 400 corporations in the United States. It was shown in immigration advocacy organizations' annual conferences in 6 countries. The American Immigration Council cited the moment in a published statement on the dignity of immigrant families. Brad Coleman issued a written apology through a family attorney 3 weeks after the episode aired. His wife Wendy issued a separate, longer statement in which she said, "I did not stop my husband. I have no excuse for that. I am living with it." Their adult son Jordan, 22, posted on social media that he was no longer the person that raised him and had enrolled in a community racial reconciliation program in Nashville. Their daughter Lindsay, 25, posted nothing for 3 weeks. Then she changed her profile photograph to the image of Steve Harvey and Vikram Patel shaking hands on the Family Feud stage. 3 months after the taping, the Vikram and Sunita Patel Scholarship awarded its first 3 recipients. 3 first-generation immigrant college students in New Jersey. Priya Patel attended the award ceremony with her parents. She gave a short speech. She said, "My parents came here with 2 suitcases and a pharmacist's license that took 3 years to get recognized. They built everything from that. This scholarship is for the people who are still in those 3 years." A year after the taping, Steve Harvey received a card in the mail at his Atlanta production office. It was from Sunita Patel. It was a handwritten card, 4 sentences. She thanked him. She told him Vikram had framed the scholarship coordinator's phone number, just the number, on a piece of paper framed. She told him Rohan had been accepted to medical school. She told him, "In Gujarat, we have a saying that the person who opens the door for you is God's messenger. You opened the door." Today, the Harvey Patel Legal Services Partnership has provided immigration legal support to 1,800 families in New Jersey, New York, and Connecticut. The Patel Scholarship has awarded 27 full 4-year grants. And on the wall of Vikram Patel's pharmacy in Edison, New Jersey, there is a photograph, framed, 8 by 10, of the moment on the Family Feud stage when Steve Harvey looked at Vikram and said, "This is your country." Vikram put it up himself. He has not moved it. His customers ask about it sometimes. He tells them the story. He tells them all of it. If this story about the Patel family and the 5 words that changed everything moved you, subscribe and hit that thumbs up button. Share this video with someone who needs to know that there are people in this world who will say you're done to hatred and mean it. Do you know an immigrant family who has faced discrimination? Let us know in the comments. Ring the notification bell for more stories about the moments when someone finally says the right thing at the right time.